My name is Tracy Bedwell and I'm the Managing Director of Sales Training International. In this short video, I'd like to give you some tips on how to improve on telesales. I think one of the main things people first of all ask me is telesales dead? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. Telesales is not dead. The old style telesales is dead. Do you remember those calls you used to get from the double glazing salespeople? Yeah, we're not advocating that. But telesales in 2022, if done properly, is a valuable part of your lead generation and your sales toolkit. And I would go further to say that if you're not doing telesales, you're missing a massive chunk of business. It's not all about social selling. Not everybody is on social media. Not everybody wants to meet face to face at the moment. And there's not many people doing telesales. So if you're doing telesales properly, then you're getting a part of a huge part of the market. If you're not, you're leaving a huge part of the market out there on the table. So let's give you some tips as to how to do it better. So I want to start off by saying my first key tip is to set yourself some goals. It is really important to set yourself goals when you're doing telesales. The first thing I think you need to do is work out how many calls you need to make to get the number of sales that you want or to get the number of appointments that you want. Now, this will vary greatly depending on the industry you're in, the product you're selling, whether you're selling B2B or B2C, and whether you're trying to make a sale or whether you're trying to get an appointment. I can't tell you what that ratio will be, but what I can say is with a little bit of practice and with a little bit of having a go at telesales, you'll soon start to work out what your ratio is. So for example, myself, I always call B2B. I never make B2C calls because it's not what we do. And I'm trying to book appointments. So I know on average, for me to get one good appointment, I probably need to make between 7 and 10 calls. I've worked that out from many months and years of doing this. So you'll be able to start working out your ratio of calls to what your outcome is that you want. You need to take that into account when you set yourself the number of calls. Another thing to think about is how much time have I got? There's no point in setting yourself 20 calls if you're trying to sell or generate leads B2B and you've only got half an hour. But if you're selling B2C, you might easily be able to make 20 calls, say, in half an hour to an hour. So I think it depends on what it is that you're doing and which industry you're in, but set yourself a realistic number of calls, given the outcome that you want, but also the time that you've got available. And also for your motivational purpose as well. Some people can easily sit on the phone for 2 hours. Other people really can't do it for much more than 30 minutes. So, think about that when you set yourself the number of calls as well. The other thing to think about when you're looking at goals is I always like to set myself a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. So my best case scenario is I get through to the right person, I have a chat with them, and I can either send them some more information or I can book another meeting. That's my best case scenario. My worst case scenario is I find out who the right person is and I get their contact details directly. So set yourself a best and a worst case scenario. So at least if you're not always getting your best outcome, at least you're getting an outcome. And you'll have some midpoints in there as well. So tip number 1, sort out your goals. Tip number 2, do I research before I pick up the phone or not? Well, the first thing that I think everybody needs to do, irrespective of what industry you're in, whether you're doing B2B, B2C, trying to sell, trying to generate leads, is you need clean data. Clean data is absolutely vital. If you don't have clean data, you're going to waste an inordinate amount of time. And it's terribly demotivating when you ring up someone and they say, oh no, they haven't worked here for 2 years. Or you try and ring up someone and the business closed 6 months earlier. So clean data is really, really important. When you're ringing up B2C, I would say probably you don't need to do the research because B2C tends to be volume calls. You may want to sort out your demographic and be able to work out, is the person I'm calling in my demographic? And maybe have they bought from us before, but I think that's probably about as much research as you need for that. As I say, B2C tends to be more volume. B2B, on the other hand, tends to be more precise, less volume, more targeted. And in that case, the research really comes in handy there. You can have a look at your own CRM systems and see, have they bought from us before? What do we know about them? You can also go onto the internet. You can search for them on Google. You can look at their website and see what information you can find out from there. Any recent articles in the news. But one of the best forms of research for B2B is LinkedIn. You can go onto LinkedIn, you can find them on LinkedIn. They may have a company page, they may have a personal page. You can even connect to them in advance so that it makes it much warmer when you're calling them if they're already recently connected to you. So my viewpoint on B2B is less volume, more niche with better research. I'd rather do 10 calls in a week and I've properly researched them than do 50 calls in a week and I've not researched any. But that's just my personal point of view. But warm leads for B2B in telesales always work better, and we can warm them up by connecting to them first on something like LinkedIn. Now, the next thing people say to me is, do we use a script or not? I've got an example of a really poor script here on the screen. I hate scripts. There's nothing worse than taking a phone call from someone and they're just sitting there and you can tell that they're reading from a script. Now, this video, I have not scripted at all. I'm just talking off the top of my head. You can probably tell. But I think it comes across as more personable, more natural, and I think you trust people when they're being themselves. So the answer to that is no scripts. But there are 3 things we can do. We can structure our call, and structuring your call is absolutely fine. So think about the start of the call. How are you going to open it? What are you going to say? Try a few different things. One little tip I would say is, if they ask you who's calling, say the company name first and then your name. So I'm calling from Sales Training International. It's Tracy. Because it's much harder to be rude to Tracy and say no to Tracy than it is to Sales Training International. So that's my one tip on your opening. You can maybe think about how you're going to hook them in quickly. You could think about what questions that you want to ask them. What if you get some objections? How might you handle those? So you can practice all this. How are you going to end it? You can structure it, but don't script it. Be yourself. But practice and structure is fine. Getting past the gatekeeper is what most people dread. And getting past the gatekeeper, if you can get your head around it, is not a problem at all. The one thing you need to remember is that you're not selling to the gatekeeper. All you want to do is have them put you through to the right person. So keep it really short. It'll differ between whether you know the name of the person who you want or you don't know the name. So for example, if I know the name of the person who looks after the learning and development department, let's say they're called Fred Smith. I can call up and say, hi, can I speak to Fred Smith? Nothing else. Or they might just put me through. Or they might say, who's calling? And I say, Tracy. Where are you calling from? I'm calling from Sales Training International. It's Tracy. And I say no more. I don't start saying, and I'd like to speak to them about this, and blah, 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 blah. I just don't do any of that. I keep it really brief. The less, the better. If you don't know their name, it's a little harder. I often go on the phone and say, hi, can you help me? I really need to speak to whoever looks after this. And I'm really sorry, but I don't have their name written down. Would you be able to tell me who that is? Asking someone, can you help me? It's human nature when someone says to you, can you help me, to want to say yes and help them. So if I don't know their name, I use that, can you help me, as often as I can. If they transfer you through, that's great. If they can't transfer you through or won't transfer you through, I still often use that, well, can you help me? Can you tell me why that you can't transfer me through? So can you help me? Can you tell me why? Or if the person's just not there, I'll say, can you help me? I'm going to need to call back, and so I don't have to bother you again. Would you be able to give me their email, or would you be able to give me their direct line? I use Can You Help Me a lot with gatekeepers, but I try and keep the conversation as brief as possible. You don't have to tell them much. We just want them to put you through. Calling at the right times helps. You know, don't call at 9 o'clock. Don't call at lunchtime. Don't call at 5 to 5. So try and call them at the right times. And don't take it personally. You know, they don't know you. If they won't put you through, if they're rude to you, so be it. Call back another day. Forget about it. Move on to the next call. It really is a numbers game, telesales. So my 2 tips on there is keep it brief and ask, can you help me? That really helps get the gatekeeper on the side and have them transfer you through, or at least give you the right contact details. So what when you get through to that person that you want to speak to? Well, you'll probably have to reintroduce yourself, because the chances are the gatekeeper may not have introduced you. Sort out your opening. So what is it you're going to lead with that makes them not want to put the phone down? And please don't say, oh, hi, I'm calling from Sales Training International, it's Tracy, and then go into a massive spiel like a lot of them do, and not give the person a chance to speak. So nice brief opening, which hooks them in. And then it's all about qualifying it and engaging them. And we do that by asking questions. Asking another person questions and then being quiet and shutting up and let them speak is a really good way to engage them. But it's also a really good way to qualify it, because we don't want to waste time on a call if they're not the right person or they're not a good potential customer. So find out the questions that you need so that you can qualify. So in my instance, for example, I need to know, do they use external training companies? How many staff do they have? What type of training do they do? Do they have budgets? All of these types of things I need to know. And I ask questions and I listen. Use positive words as much as you can. So say things like, that's wonderful, thank you, fantastic, that's great information. Words like wonderful, fantastic, great, thank you. They're very positive words. They keep people on side. Keep your pace and your tone right. So not too quickly, not too slowly, quite happy, not bored. Oh my God, this is the 15th call I've made today. And have a contingency plan. If they're not the right person, what am I going to say to them? Am I going to ask for the right person? Are they going to transfer me through? If they're not a good prospect, what am I going to say? Am I just going to say thank you and goodbye? Or am I going to ask for their details to put them on the database just to keep them in touch with our products? Have a contingency plan to end the call if you need to. So that's when you get through to the person. What if you can't get through to them? Well, there's voicemail, and a lot of people are very worried about using voicemail. Don't. Hardly anybody uses voicemail. I would say you can practice this and you can script this, because you're not talking to a person directly, you're leaving a voice message. So company name first, then your own name, speak clearly, keep it really short, let them know why you were calling, leave your name and let them know you're going to call them back. And that's it. And practice it and practice it and practice it until it sounds polished. And then don't be frightened of leaving voicemails. But you need to follow up. Irrespective of whether you leave a voicemail or whether it's not a good time and you say you're going to call them back, or you can't get through, you still need to follow up. Have a look at these stats on the screen. You know, you're never going to get what you want on the first call. Well, I say you're never going to. You might occasionally, but it's very rare. But so many salespeople just don't follow up. They put all the hard work and the effort in, and then they just don't follow up. So have a good system to follow up, whether that's using your Outlook or your CRM system, but have a good system to keep notes and to put a diary on to follow up. Be persistent with people until you realize that they're not a good prospect or they tell you to get lost. Make sure you do as you say. There's nothing worse than saying to someone you're going to follow them, you're going to call them back next Friday, or you'll put a note in your diary and call them back in a month's time, and then you don't do that. But equally, know when to let go. If they're not taking your calls, if you're getting the vibe that they're not interested or they're not a good client or a good prospect, then let it go. There's plenty more out there. So I hope those tips have helped you. On our website, there are lots and lots of free resources. In fact, we've got over 200 free resources on our website. So pop along to our website and have a look on there. On YouTube, we've got lots of videos that are helpful, and there'll be lots of more coming on. So follow us and subscribe on YouTube. My email address is here if you've got any questions. And finally, if you open up your phone and scan the QR code, that will link you to our company page on LinkedIn, and we put lots of free information and advice on there. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Tracy, and I'm the Managing Director of Sales Training International, and I'll be back soon with some more helpful videos.